It was a dark silhouette and he couldn't clearly distinguish its features. However, he felt an intense chill run through his body. As the shadow drew nearer, Sánchez raised his weapon and shouted, demanding it to stop. Despite his warnings, the figure continued advancing silently. Sánchez, feeling threatened, fired a warning shot into the air. The sound echoed through the forest, but the shadow remained unfazed. At that moment, Hernández, who was nearby, rushed to join Sánchez, and together they tried to illuminate the area with their flashlights, but the shadow had vanished. Confused and on high alert, they decided to wake the rest of the team. We gathered quickly, forming a defensive perimeter around the camp. The atmosphere was tense and everyone was on edge trying to rationalize what Sánchez had seen. After a thorough search of the area, we found no traces or signs of an intruder. However, the unsettling feeling lingered. We resumed our positions, but sleep was elusive for most of us that night. As dawn broke, the oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift slightly, but the memory of the night's events stayed with us. We couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone in those woods. Although he had his rifle loaded and ready to use, he didn't attempt to raise it against what he was observing. It was the size of a person. It wasn't moving too fast or too slow, but it was coming directly toward me, floating without touching the ground. It was floating, recounted the astonished Marino Sánchez. He mentioned that about 10 meters before this shadow reached his position, he saw it leap about 5 or 6 meters toward the trees, disappearing into the darkness. This, evidently, surprised him greatly and left him bewildered. Hernández was guarding another area of the camp when he suddenly started to feel stones and branches being thrown at him from the surrounding vegetation, believing that we, his companions, were playing a prank on him, but that wasn't the case. Fear gripped Hernández when he suddenly felt a strong blow that knocked him down. He tried to get up but couldn't. A force kept him pinned, unable to rise from where he was. He wanted to scream, felt like he did, but apparently none of us heard him, not even Sánchez, who was the other guard on duty at that time. Sánchez and all of us in the camp realized something was happening when we heard a loud thud followed by a gunshot, and the explosion woke us up. We all got up with our rifles ready because we thought armed criminals were ambushing us. The only thing we heard and managed to see was the flapping of a large shadow moving away among the trees. It seemed like a huge bird, or at least that's what it seemed to all of us. We reached the area where Hernández was to help him and saw that he was still on the ground, motionless, with an injury on his face. We asked him what had happened, and he told us that a shadow had attacked and paralyzed him. He said that with great effort, he managed to fire his rifle to alert everyone else and get our assistance. We took Hernández to a tent to be treated by the medic accompanying us. After the attack on Hernández, we all decided to stay awake in case another similar attack occurred, so we could respond to whatever had attacked our companion. The paranormal events were just beginning. We decided to take turns scanning the surroundings of the camp with night vision goggles. We saw 8 humanoid figures, or at least that's what they appeared to be, surrounding the camp. What surprised me was that they seemed to be standing there, staring in our direction with black eyes as if they knew we were there. I want to clarify that night vision allows you to see the environment even in low light conditions as if it were almost daytime. It was very dark. There was no moonlight, so there was no way they could have known we were there. One of our team members ran to alert the unit commander that we were surrounded by these unidentified strange people. Meanwhile, 2 other comrades and I, seeing that they had penetrated the security perimeter of our camp where we were authorized to use lethal force, opened fire and emptied our rifle magazines at those silhouettes. We wanted to verify that we had hit the target, so we used night vision to scan the area where we had fired, but we saw nothing of those silhouettes. Thinking they had fled, we decided to regroup with the others when we suddenly heard a call over the radio from other team members requesting support because they were seeing shadows moving threateningly among the trees. We arrived and indeed saw the trees moving as if shaken by some immense force. We decided to gather in the center of the camp and stay together to face the threat. We began to feel immense fear, confronting entities or dark forces that we did not understand and did not know how to combat. The shadows moving among the trees started emitting chilling screeches, sending a terrible shiver down our spines and causing panic among us. With our night vision goggles, we discovered there were about 20 humanoid silhouettes on the ground and in the trees, surrounding us and staring with those terrifying black eyes. One of my comrades started shouting that they were demons and that we needed to get out of there. Suddenly, two of these entities began moving rapidly toward us. My comrades and I didn't hesitate and started shooting. Without exaggeration, we fired about 100 rounds at those things, but the shots only made them stop their movement and leap into the trees to join the others who continued watching us. We were all fearful and bewildered, not knowing how to fight these things, these demonic entities that were harassing and attacking us. We were surrounded, and in the middle of the jungle, there was no nearby village to escape to. We had only two options: resist the attack and onslaught of these entities as best we could, or request support via radio from the ship on the coast and urgently ask for a helicopter to extract us from that place. I checked my watch. It was 4:30 in the morning. If we could hold out for another hour, dawn would break, and those things would surely return to wherever they came from. The shadows continued to stare at us with those demonic eyes and a macabre smile, emitting grotesque howls that sent shivers even to the bravest among us. Corporal Ortiz, in charge of the radio in a panic attack, requested helicopter support from the naval operations ship located about 100 kilometers away on the coast, but he received no response. We knew then that we had lost radio communication. We were isolated from our base. One of our comrades, who had knowledge of Santeria and white magic, shouted to all of us that we needed to cross the bullets, marking the tips of the cartridges with a cross using a knife. As we fired, we were to shout as loudly as we could that God was with us and that we feared no demon. Our fear was so great that we decided to try this method to rid ourselves of the entities that were tormenting us. We hurriedly crossed the bullets with our knives, loaded them into our magazines and prepared to fire. Once our weapons were ready, at the command of our unit's officer, we fired simultaneously at the entities located in the trees. As we fired, we shouted with all our might that God was with us and that we feared no demons, commanding them to leave. When we did this, the branches and vegetation began to shake violently, as if struck by a strong wind. We saw those things start to leap from treetop to treetop, moving away from us until they disappeared, and the night regained its natural sounds and calm. Radio transmissions resumed, and fearing that those things might return during the rest of the night, the unit's commanding officer reported to the operations ship that the area was not secure, that we had been attacked by unidentified entities, and requested an immediate helicopter evacuation. Our base responded that a helicopter would come to retrieve us at dawn, as it was too dangerous to do so at night. Physically and mentally shaken by the paranormal event, we suffered minor injuries, bruises and cuts on our skin, with our uniforms torn. We all had a severe headache, the cause of which we could not understand. We spent the rest of the night together, tense and anxious, with some of my comrades praying and invoking God's protection. At dawn, grateful to be alive, we quickly packed up our camp and hurriedly left that cursed place, heading to a clearing in the jungle to meet the helicopter that would take us back to the operations ship. This type of information is never made public. It is considered confidential, but it exists in the archives of the Navy and other armed and security institutions in Mexico. To this day, I still can't find a rational explanation for these terrifying events I experienced alongside my comrades.